Good morning, and thank you for joining us for a discussion of what looms ahead in the House of Commons as we resume this week. As leader of the Green Party of Canada, I want to speak directly to the leaders of the other parties in the House and ask Mr. Harper, Mr. Ignatieff, Mr. Layton, and Mr. Duceppe to change the tone, to dial down the rhetoric, and to think about how we can best serve Canadians. It's clear that with the volley of attack ads that have flown back and forth through the month of January, when the House was in recess, and when ostensibly all of these same gentlemen claim they want the House to work, claim they want to be able to do the business of the people, that we really need to do a reality check on this and ask ourselves if we can't do better. There was a recent column where Jeffrey Simpson called on people reflecting on Abraham Lincoln's words that people in public life could heed their better angels. I think we all have better angels. Attack ads are, by definition, fundamentally anti-democratic. Research into why attack ads, quote-unquote, work tells us that they work by discouraging voters from showing up. Voter suppression is even a turn of phrase used by Republicans south of the border, and I'm afraid that this very anti-democratic strategy has come to Canada. It's time to send it packing. Attack ads work by making voters think that it's all too unpleasant. They tune out political discourse because it's all dreadful. What would it be like for Canadians if in the coming months we found that across all party lines, members of Parliament were prepared to work together? I know a lot of the MPs who are currently elected in the House. They're all better than this. Many individuals would much prefer to find ways to work across party lines. It's the spin doctors and the political party apparatus constantly gets in the way of doing work well in the House. It wasn't always like this. It's getting rapidly worse, but it's not too late to turn away from this kind of politics. Un peu résumé en français, je veux dire que les publicités négatives marchent, mais les publicités négatives marchent par un effet absolument antidémocratique. Ils réduisent le taux de participation par les électeurs parce que les participations électorales réduire quand il y a les publicités négatives. Ils se m'ont donné un message que les politiques sont un climat absolument négatif, affreux, et avec ce message, les électeurs pensent que peut-être ce n'est pas une bonne idée de participer. Alors, la publicité négative fonctionne parce qu'elle réduit le taux de participation électorale. Et de réduire le taux de participation électorale, c'est une stratégie délibérée. Et avec ça, c'est par définition, les publicités négatives sont antidémocratiques. En même temps, elles sont aussi anti-canadiens. Nous avons un code canadien des normes de la publicité. Alors, les partis en politique sont exempts n'appliquent pas pour les partis en politique le code, mais le groupe qu'est-ce que c'est le nom de les normes canadiennes de la publicité, c'est aussi demande, exige les partis en politique de s'il vous plaît, c'est comme un effort volontaire de poursuivre le code and to voluntarily accept that they should maintain the same standards of other publicity. In other words, Tim Hortons wouldn't be able to run attack ads against Starbucks the way Mr. Harper can run attack ads against Mr. Layton or Mr. Ignatieff and vice versa. So shouldn't we hold our elected officials, in fact our Prime Minister, to a higher standard of behavior than that to which we would hold those who would want us to buy their goods and services? Certainly Mr. Harper can meet the same standards as Tim Hortons. Thanks very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Conservatives that would benefit the most from these attack ads, because, as you said, it drives the voter response down.
Yes, in this instance, in this election cycle, and I think in 2008, it's clear that if you look at the voting turnout, that the strategy of reducing voter turnout was much more to Mr. Harper's advantage than anyone else's. As a matter of fact, in the 2008 election, the Green Party, we were the only party to actually increase our voter response. We had over 270,000 more votes than we had in 2006. Mr. Harper had fewer voters turn out for the Conservative Party in 08 than in 06, but he had about 170,000, as I recall, fewer votes in 08 than in 06, whereas the Liberal Party had almost 800,000 fewer votes in 08 than in 06. So the effect of that generation of attack ads, which was, we'll all recall, were ridiculing the former leader of the Liberal Party, Stéphane Dion, very, very specific and personal to him. Those attack ads had a role, and this is what public opinion analysis say, in discouraging voter turnout, so that the Liberal Party lost far more votes, and the Conservative base was energized sufficiently to turn out to vote. They lost votes from those who weren't their full base. There were still fewer people voted Conservative than voted Conservative in 06. But again, I think you're right, Richard, that this election coming up, it looks very much as though it will be again in the Conservative Party's advantage. But I'm trying to speak more generally about what's happening to our system, because as this goes forward, there'll be another election cycle where perhaps it'll be the Liberals who find an advantage in discouraging voter turnout. But when you go much below 59% of the vote, and that's my major concern as a leader of a federal political party, is that as we go into what may be a spring 2011 election, will it be the policy of the political strategists and spin doctors in other parties to actually discourage voters from going to the polls? This is we in the streets in Egypt to try to get democracy. We know how far people around the world will risk their lives to get democracy. And in Canada, we appear to have, at the level of political strategists for election campaigns, people willing to deliberately poison democracy in Canada through this kind of negative advertising.